Hello and welcome to Chaos Effect. It's really weird to intro like that, but hello, I'm Tyler.
And your main man, McLean.
And today we have some epic people to talk about. Isn't that?
Yee. Excited noises from here.
Yes, because first of all, we are very overjoyed to celebrate Black History Month with incredible figures from American history that go overlooked very significantly, and are heroes in many respects. Even though they technically fought under the French flag, and
Clearly only because our country was too racist to let them join the military.
precisely, today we are talking about the Harlem Hellfighters,
Woo!
otherwise known as the 369th Infantry Regiment, which is much less. It's a much less cool name. I gotta be real. Um, Fun fact: the Hellfighters name actually came from the Germans. That's what they referred to them as, because these dudes fought like hell.
Yeah, the Germans gave us our coolest nicknames, like
Oh,
Devil
straight up,
Dogs for Marines.
yeah. Um, there was a couple other um nicknames for them, like the Men of Bronze or the Black Rattlers, but it seems like the Harlem Hellfighters stuck the most. But obviously, Harlem is in New York, not in Germany or France. So the 369th Infantry Regiment is actually a New York National Guard regiment, um, and most of the men who would become Hellfighters are from New York. So that's where their name comes from. And World War One breaks out.
Well, yeah, and can I speak real quick on like kind of explaining like some logistics about the American Army at the time?
Yeah,
So we, unlike other countries where we'd pull people from different towns and cities, and actually this was a big reason. In the Civil War, we started doing this, but a lot of our units would come from like National Guard units, and because we weren't really thinking on ideas of having a huge offensive army. So like you'd be fighting with guys from your town and neighborhood because they thought that would make you a better cohesive unit. Now they learned that's a bad idea because if like 90% of a town gets wiped out and the guys who come back are basically like, hey, nobody should join the army.
yeah,
That's not great. So they started doing things like putting units where you made sure people weren't completely from the same town. But back then it was very common. In fact, one of the first American units to step foot under the American flag was the Pennsylvania National Guard.
oh wow, representing
Yeah.
hometown, isn't it?
Yeah. So, um, yeah. So that's probably why a lot of these guys they would be from New York. Is they were New York National Guard. Was at the time we mostly had National Guard units go over to fight or enlisting.
Yeah. Um, you also have the Selective Service Act, which is passed in 1917 by my favorite president, Woodrow Wilson, which,
That's a lie.
dear Lord, do I hate Woodrow Wilson.
I think he's one of those presidents where people either know nothing about him or want to punch him in the face, then shove his face into a meat
Well,
grinder.
the thing is, like, he's supposed, like, the way he's taught in history classes, at least for me, like, he's supposed to be like a neat guy. He's just like, yeah, he led us through World War One and like created the League of Nations and like self determination and 14 points and shit. That's pretty cool. What I learned later is, dear Lord, was this dude racist? um, Woodrow Wilson is very much one of the biggest perpetrators of this, like the Southern like states' rights myth and stuff like that. And ugh, he's also very famous for screening The Birth of a Nation in the White House, which, if you know anything
And
about that film,
Republicans use that. Well, Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat and he was racist
yeah,
all the time now.
yeah, because
That's
the
because in
Democrats,
1930 they had a freaking flip of parties. So
because the Democrats in 19 whatever were the same as they are now. But I digress. This is not an episode about Woodrow Wilson. but the Civil Service Act, the Selective Service Act, correction, was signed that requires all men in the United States to register for military service. So a bunch of people um, ended up getting drafted, like because America's standing army before entering the war was kind of whack. So like, okay, we need a lot of people quickly. How do we get a lot of people quickly? Let's just force them to join the army. That sounds like a great idea. And a lot of African Americans end up getting drafted. But problem, the military segregated. Who would have thought
And
that?
also, like, this is the first time we'd be fighting a country like with the same amount of guns as us since the Civil War when we fought ourselves.
Yeah,
Because like I think the only other conflict that comes to mind we were involved in was probably the Philippines, and that was mostly just us doing war crimes.
yeah. Like the Philippine War is just it's kind of just American devastation in a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
it was us fighting guys with machetes, and the guys with machetes at first did better than us.
Right. But it's also just like the first time America gets like super involved in whatever Europe's doing because obviously the United States had a hand in major foreign policy decisions before this, but like we are committing a large amount of troops to fight a war in Europe, and that's unheard of before. So this is a huge shakeup for a lot of people. But again, our military is segregated at this time, and it has been forever. We A little history of segregation in our military is that we actually had a decent amount of African American, both mixed and both a mix of both free and enslaved soldiers in the Revolutionary War. They were definitely not treated as well, and they weren't given as many guns because, of course, they're afraid of like a slave uprising. But they did exist. But
Yeah, I
after
mean,
that, they kind of just go away for
the
a while.
treatment of black soldiers in wars prior to World War II pretty much was, well, we have a really disposable force and they're okay for suicide missions.
Yeah.
Like
So
in Glory, like the mission that basically kills everybody, it was decided this is really dangerous. Who should we have do it?
the black
Yeah.
um they didn't they were banned from the military for a while, but they come back in the Civil War. So you have a lot of blacks who fought for the Union, and then you have a lot of blacks who didn't fight for the Confederacy but did a lot of labor jobs because dear Lord, the Confederacy sucks.
Except that like one unit from New Orleans that every conservative insists on bringing up when we argue about the Civil War.
Yeah, and
Some explanation behind that unit, just so we don't have to do in the future. It was mostly like the children of slave owners and slaves that lived in like a small society of free black people in New Orleans. Um, and if you could guess why there'd be children of slave owners and slaves, um, it's not good.
yeah, ah, man, this is sad,
All right, let's keep moving.
but
Play a
um,
fun game. As you listen to, every time we say something sad in this podcast about black men fighting in World War One, take a shot.
man, this is not going to be an easy episode for you if you're doing that. Um, but honestly, it doesn't get that much worse because we're gonna keep going, and soon it's gonna get cool. Um, but by the time World War One breaks out, tons of people are being sent overseas, and because the army is segregated, the white soldiers don't want to fight alongside the black soldiers. So that causes issues because you have black regiments, but goddamn, we're not gonna go fight with them, those people. Disgusting. So a lot of those people end up doing, again, labor jobs. So unloading ships, moving supplies, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that's what a lot of black soldiers were ended up doing in the war. And you might be wondering, why are there so many black people who are in this war? Doesn't America totally like completely disrespect them? Why would they want to fight for America? Well, a lot of first of all, America is their home too. They live in this country. They as much as they're disrespected by their own country, that's still their homeland. But they also have this sad idea that maybe if they prove themselves worthy in war, that maybe they'll earn the respect of the country, and then they'll be viewed as heroes of war. And that didn't happen, obviously, which is tragic. But a lot of black people were very eager to fight to serve their country and to get to war and then be absolutely disrespected like that is really gross. But you have then you get to the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters, and these guys are given to the French because the American soldiers don't want to fight alongside these guys, and the French needed more people. So they're pretty much a handoff.
It's like they led all their guys into certain death by having them slow march into modern artillery, wearing the brightest uniforms ever invented at the very beginning of the war.
Yeah. Now the Hellfighters, they're easily one of the most deadly groups in the French army at this time, and they are a force to be reckoned with, despite their like lack of training. They, in a lot of respects, they absolutely are the kinds of guys that get shit done. And one of these guys that absolutely gets shit done is my boy Henry Johnson, who very much could have fit into that episode that we did 2 weeks ago with those lovely war heroes and total badasses, because this dude is incredible. Henry Johnson, on May 14th, 1918, he was on sentry duty with his boy Needham Roberts, and Johnson heard some rustling nearby. Then they realized him and Roberts realized, oh snap, we're surrounded by Germans everywhere. And Johnson tells Roberts to go run for help, but Roberts gets blown up by a grenade. He's fine. He survives, but he gets hit by shrapnel. But he's still alive. So basically, Roberts is just handing Johnson grenades, and then Johnson's just chucking grenades into German lines and into the night. He has no idea. It's dark outside. It's nighttime, so he has no idea where he's chucking these grenades, but he's just chucking them, just going straight at it. And he runs out of grenades eventually. All this time, he's getting shot. He's getting absolutely shot at, and he gets hit by a couple bullets. But once he runs out of grenades, he picks up his rifle, just starts shooting at dudes, just shooting into the night, bop, 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 bop. And then he runs out of bullets. So what does he do? Quickly, because...
Does he just start throwing the guns like javelins?
No, it's
because that's what I imagine next.
It's even cooler. So what happens next is he has a French rifle, but he accidentally loads American cartridge into his French rifle, and that causes the gun to jam. So that's a sticky situation. He's got a jammed gun, and there's Germans all around. He then proceeds to use the butt of his rifle as a club and start beating dudes all to death. And all the while he's still getting shot at.
That's so badass. I love to think too there was another guy there with him. You know you have a bayonet, right? And he just like takes the bayonet, picks his teeth, thanks, and then continues beating Germans over the head with his gun.
Yeah.
Like
But
an
then
extreme badass.
he's beaten these dudes, but eventually his rifle breaks. What's he gonna do now? He's got Germans all around him.
Does he
He
just start punching?
Now he whips out his bolo knife and charges that dude and just starts chopping motherfuckers up.
I think after I see a guy break a gun over another man's head and then whip out a knife, I would have been like, I'm walking back.
I know.
Sergeant Hushbill, what are you doing back? Well, you see, I was. But then this dude shot so many of us, he ran out of ammo and grenades, and he started beating us up with his gun, but then broke the gun while beating us up. Then he pulled a knife. I decided I want to see tomorrow.
This is all happening all the like Johnson is being shot right now. He's been shot a couple times. Like he's doing all this shit with bullet wounds in his body. And the Germans just keep coming at him. But then they realize like, uh-oh, the Americans and the French are coming nearby. We got to retreat. And he survives. So this dude single-handedly, I think he took on like 20 to 30 dudes with grenades, a rifle, then the butt of a rifle and a knife.
I would love the idea one of those Germans returning to their officer, like beat up. What happened? It was one guy. How did you guys not take that position?
Like,
no. You don't know.
dear Lord, what?
Like, and also to get shot and keep doing, like, I once stubbed my toe and I needed to sit down for 5 minutes.
Yeah. He said something afterwards, which was he's just like, yeah, he didn't think, I can't remember the exact quote, but I don't think he thought much of it. He was just like, yeah, I was just fighting for survival, like a rabbit, like anybody would do that. And it's like, yeah, but not everybody has the fucking balls to stand up to a dude with a with a rifle and a knife while you're being shot at.
I think most people would run away when they ran out of ammo.
Right. And like after his gun jams from loading in the wrong cartridge, like that's the end for most people. You're just like, oh shit, what am I gonna do now? But this dude's got the instinct to use his rifle despite not being able to shoot as its own weapon, and I cannot understate how badass this dude is. But it's not all happy because this dude is a war hero, and he gets the Croix de Gras. I think I don't know French very well. The Croix de Gare. Do you know the award I'm talking about?
I know it's like one of those awards it's like the Victoria Cross or the Medal of Honor. It's a very
Yeah,
very prestigious award.
yeah. So the Harlem Hellfighters are awarded this, and they're the first Americans to ever receive this award because the French are significantly less racist.
Which, well, less racist, not less anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, also, it's not like they weren't racist.
Yeah, like, right. They were okay with having black soldiers because they were okay with sacrificing black soldiers. Like, that's like, if that as bad as that sounds, like in World War II, they brought people from their colonies because they wanted them on the more dangerous parts of the front lines than their French soldiers.
Yeah, and also like they're able to they're like tolerant of black people. Like they'll fight alongside them. They don't really mind that much, and they treat them much better. Um, so the French are more than happy to have these dudes along.
Yeah, I think that's like a better description of what I'm saying is they're not exactly happy they're there, but they'll tolerate it.
Yeah, because especially because like the French were in like desperate need of more soldiers at this time.
Yeah.
Like,
And
all
it
right,
was,
y'all can
and
come along.
quite frankly, like at the time, like it wasn't uncommon for places that had colonies like France or Britain to have black soldiers because the soldiers in those colonies were more trained than a lot of their soldiers at home at the time.
Right. Um, so and especially since these guys are getting results, like it's not like they're just like standing there and doing nothing and just getting shot at. No, these dudes are
One of
putting,
their guys beat up 30 Germans. That's some results.
yeah, by himself. Like I can't understate how awesome it
Again,
is.
that must have been one of those moments like, hey, one of the guys from the Harlem Hellfighters beat up, took out 30 men. The Harlem Hellfighters took out 30 men. No, no, no. One of their guys did.
One guy, Henry Johnson, an absolute king, but he he does not get treated well.
I hope him and
Very
Leo Majors accidentally met at one point in life.
well. Henry Johnson dies in 1929, so
Oh. I mean,
probably.
that's still technically possible, but like, I hope in heaven they have crossed paths.
Oh, they'd get along just well. They'd get along just fine.
Hey, do you like killing an obscure amount of Germans? Fuck yeah, I do.
Hell yeah, man. We really have a knack for just beating the shit out of Germans.
Popping some beers up there. So you enjoy killing Germans? What's your favorite way? Well, I just get really angry and shoot 3 guns at them. I beat them with the gun. That's hardcore.
And then like I'd be done. Like first of all, I would have been like, as soon as my rifle jammed, I'd have been like, all right, this is it for me.
As
Good.
soon as I saw more than 3 Germans that realized I was by myself, I would have been gone. You would look over, there would be me. You'd look back at the Germans, and you'd look back at me, and there would be a helmet spinning in the air.
Yeah. And then, but as, like the fact that he kept fighting after his rifle broke.
Yeah. So you were going on. So they were recognized as heroes. So what happens next in our journey of
Well, they're recognized as heroes by the French.
right? Because I doubt America nor or Britain really would.
Uh, so in their communities, especially like among other Black people back in America, they're celebrated. Um, and like the especially like especially Johnson, he's like lauded as one of like the most heroic fighters um, in World War I. But uh, it's not enough. They like get some sort of respect, but they're still they get home they come home after serving their country and putting their lives on the line, and some of them losing their lives and being injured permanently and killing for this country, and they're still completely disrespected.
Dying for the country. I
Yeah,
think like that. That's the thing. Like, if you just want to think about how like disrespected these guys have been, think about the fact that for a lot of people who are listening are just learning about this for the first time now.
right.
And then think of all the times you've heard about like the screaming eagles, the devil dogs, or like name a white guy from history.
Yeah, like these guys have made like a couple appearances in like popular media. Like the most notably, I think, or at least most recently, would probably be like Battlefield One's campaign, where I
Like
think
they get 10 minutes
yeah, I think it's like
in the tutorial
mm-hmm,
and like sometimes on multiplayer.
yeah. Um, but there's also a graphic novel, um, I think by Max Brooks.
Yeah, the guy who did World War Z.
Yeah, that guy. So that they have some representation in popular media, but overall, these guys are war heroes that put everything on the line for this country, and once they come back, they're treated with incredible disrespect, and they're expected to come home and talk like I think Johnson was expected to talk about like how nice they were treated uh, in the war, and how they were supposed to be like brothers and comrades, and that couldn't be the farthest from the truth. And from he Johnson dies in 1929, a poor man with almost nothing. um, in 2015, he was awarded the Medal of Honor by after he died by
Oh,
Barack
so like
Obama.
only almost 100 years later.
Yeah, like almost 100 years later, he gets awarded the Medal of Honor by Barack Obama. Uh, but
Yeah, I think I heard something crazy. Like I want to say the large majority of Black Medal of Honor recipients got their Medal of Honors under the Obama presidency.
yeah, well, because it's like Obama is the only one.
I mean, I don't want to say he's the only one who cared, but he's definitely the only one who, as of right now, I can speak, really acknowledged 90% of these guys.
Right. That's what I was going for. It's just like Obama was willing to look at our history in from a different angle. I mean, that's probably like as a black man himself, he's definitely more he's probably more aware of people like Henry Johnson, but
Well, as a Black man himself, you have to imagine the first Black president. There was a lot of responsibility on his hands to set the record straight for things like that.
right, for sure. Um, so it's really great to have that kind of acknowledgement. It's just why did it take
Yeah,
so long?
why did it take so long?
But thanks Obama. You recognize the real G right there. Um, I totally forgot where I was going. I thought this was gonna be long.
Oh God, is that it?
I where the fuck was I going? I I was just like going on this rant about Obama and like wait no there was a point to the story and I just don't remember what it
You
was.
were talking about returning home, Medal of Honor, something.
Right.
We were
Okay.
talking about their legacy a little bit.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think there's even an anime reference to them.
are you aware of which anime it is?
I don't know, but I remember somebody telling me that.
I'm gonna look up Harlem Hellfighters anime. Mm,
What?
nah. Oh, there's no. I'm not seeing anything. I
Yes, I think somebody told me that, and they were probably wrong. They were probably thinking about the Max Brooks comics
yeah. Honestly, that's probably what it was.
because I've like seen a few pages, and like that has those vibes.
We. I'm on animesuperhero.com. Harlem Hellfighters may be coming to the big screen. This
I
was
do, yeah, I
this
do
was
believe Max Brooks is trying to get a movie adaptation of his comic made.
oh, I want to make the movie first.
Dude, just do the movie about Carter.
Yeah.
That would be actually like we should just do an anthology series. Here's the craziest guys to history. It's just Leo Majors being Canadian as fuck while like capturing 1,000 Germans at once while saying sorry. Joseph Burley with a dent in his head, like shooting the Germans that once captured him, and then this dude clubbing a German to death.
Yeah.
So what else do you gotta tell us? There's that.
Racism is bad.
Yeah, so
Look, I really thought this was gonna be longer.
I mean, we got some other topics I kind of brought in case this happened. If you want to talk about them,
Well, I feel really bad. I forgot. I thought this was longer.
but because I also feel like this is a good opportunity for us to talk about like history, whitewashing, and history,
Yeah.
and like how often do we hear about like like I was because I think this is a good time to talk about like yeah, there should be more representation of this stuff in history movies. But then of course you will hear your Ben Shapiro's, Sargon of Akkad, and Steven Crowder. You scream at the movie screen about how inaccurate it is for there to be a color of person, despite the fact if they actually, you know, let's go over Sargon of Akkad, some weird internet fat guy, which you know, Ben Shapiro is like, I think something, what is he like a law student or something?
I don't.
Point is, he's not a no, he's like a media writer, which is hilarious because he's against like entertainment industry. And Steven Crowder is a comedian who sucks so bad he had to become a racist.
Yeah,
Like,
that's about it.
and they all claim to be like historical experts, which they're not. And I never claim that I'm at least I don't know about you, but I don't ever claim I'm an expert on anything we talk about. I always say we are welcome to hear comments if you provide sources or if you have an expertise, because we are not experts on anything we talk about.
We're also young
Also young, right?
and
Um,
learning a lot about the world.
but like, it's I'm always really interested to see things like, for example, in Dunkirk, there was some representation of black soldiers in the French army.
They
It's
exist.
like blink and you miss it, you'll see it, but and there are some people talking about like how if it was slightly more realistic, there would have been probably some more black soldiers holding that line. And that's true. I mean, Dunkirk's a very good movie regardless.
I
Um,
enjoy Dunkirk.
then, I think the other controversy, or not controversy, because nobody cared unless you were like poisoning your brain with politics like I do on the daily basis, which is 1917 had a scene where there was a Sikh soldier in that truck.
Oh, I remember. I remember how pissed people got
Yeah.
about that, and I don't know why. Because it's not like that wouldn't have happened.
There at the beginning of the war, there was more like Indian and colonials, like Commonwealth soldiers, than there were actual British soldiers on the
Right.
battlefield.
Because guess what? Which subcontinent was under occupation by the British Army?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, and like also, there's like when I think black representation in war movies, there's maybe three movies that come to mind, and one of them's that like World War II zombie movie.
Overlord.
Yeah, Overlord. I still need to see that. Apparently,
I
that's pretty good. And like
um
people got angry that there was a black paratrooper in it. Not the fact there's Nazi zombies.
no, yeah, but there's literal fucking zombies, but you're mad about the black guy.
Yeah. And then you have Red Tails, which is that George Lucas movie that came out and isn't great, but it's like one of the few examples you have. And then I failed to think of a third one, unfortunately. Um, yeah, but like people act like these wars were only like the one expression I actually heard somebody argumenting why like you shouldn't have representation is these were white man's wars. But that's a largely false idea of war in general. Like it's in history.
Well, yeah, like
Um,
especially as I mentioned before, when I was talking about why so many black people were signing up for the army, it's because this is their country too. They have just as much stake, in fact, even more stake in how, the fate of this country than anybody else.
well, and too, like going beyond like just black men who served in the military, you also had people who serving. There were Japanese Americans serving in the American Army during World War II, when their families were being held in prison camps here.
Yeah,
Um, in World War II, you also had they just made a movie about it called The Liberators, but one of the divisions, I believe, is the Thunderbirds. They were called, which was mostly Native American, Hispanic, and a few had a lot of Native American men and Hispanic men in it. And the funny thing is, the Germans thought we were getting desperate by the fact we were sending people of color to fight them, and not the fact we were just overwhelming them.
right.
Yeah.
It's so insane to me that like was so racist that they'd rather disadvantage themselves by not allowing more soldiers to fight than than putting black soldiers in line. Like I I cannot get over that fact that they'd literally rather put themselves in a worse position than be an integrated army.
Like that tells you something. This country is so racist. We will not let you die for this country.
That's there it is right there. Like more they by the way, I also must mention that there were also Puerto Rican fighters within the Harlem division too. It was mainly African Americans, but there was also a couple like Puerto Rican and Hispanic men fighting too. But all those people have just as much stake in the fate of our country
I mean,
than
people
any
got upset about Michael Pena's character being in the armored division in World War II in Fury.
fury.
But like,
Yeah,
fun fact: there's a strong chance that if he joined the army, that the recruiter probably just assumed he was Italian. Because there's a lot of stories like that where it's like you'd lie to a recruiter and tell them you were Italian and not Hispanic, and they'd believe you. Because our racist ass country is not that great at identifying people like that.
yeah. It's
History's fun, isn't it?
it's super fun. Oh, how many shots do you think that is?
Somebody's like crying. I want to die.
Man, I mean, oh, other movie I just remembered. It came out last year. I think, The Five Bloods.
Oh yeah, I started that. I've been meaning to finish it, but yeah, Vietnam especially is a really I think Muhammad Ali's words on Vietnam will always stick with me. I can't really say his words on that because I am white completely, but he basically says that why should I fight them? They've never sicked police dogs on me. They've never beat me. They never called me the N word. And it's a very true thing. Like, what incentive did I have to fight for your country when your country will not fight for me?
Exactly. Um,
And
I I just watched Judas and the Black Messiah the other day, which to anybody listening, I think that is a much watch film.
yeah, and we're probably going to do a review on that before Black History Month ends. I want to do an episode talking about some I might talk about two people, but we're going to find out. Um, I think, but yeah, what were your thoughts on that movie? Just to give us like a brief overview and like maybe some background information.
So that movie is about Fred Hampton, who's the chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers, and the movie takes place largely in 1968, 1969, around there. And of course, this movie like centers around the Black Panthers and the Black Panther movement. But of course, like Vietnam is still happening in the background of all of this, and while it's like the Black Panthers are like are ready for a revolution, they're sitting there like, why are we still being um like some of them, I think some of them were like more afraid of dying to a police officer than they were of dying in Vietnam.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked. Um, I feel like that should be like the unofficial slogan of this podcast. Like, cool, interesting. That's pretty fucked.
Yeah,
Like things we talk about range somewhere between, oh yeah, that's cool, or no, that's pretty fucked.
yeah. we had both sides today. We have Henry Johnson,
Yeah, we had the coolest
one
guy, and
man
now we're
assault.
talking about like how awful history's treated people who fought for it. Now another thing comes to an episode we should definitely do the Code Talkers.
Oh, absolutely, they're so cool.
Yeah, and then they got treated so bad when they returned.
It's really depressing, but it's not all bad.
Yeah,
because
yeah. I mean, it's pretty bad, but it's not all bad.
it's really bad. But
I
uh,
like, you know,
we still have the like as much as history might forget some of these stories. They still exist, and here we are, still able to tell them. We're we still have the accounts of Mr. Johnson, and I can just like go on and on about how awesome his club assault was.
yeah. And also just thinking the existence of the Harlem Hellfighters in general is so incredibly cool.
Oh yeah, they're my favorite representation of New York, hands down. My
Yeah, like I tried to think like what Pennsylvania has going for it. We got the Pennsylvania National Guard's first foot.
um,
The Revolutionary War,
at
because
the Declaration of Independence there. It's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Well, it's
Is that
like, yeah,
your
we claim to be the original capital of the United States, but so
of
does
New York?
Boston, New York, and every other place in this freaking country.
New York was the capital for a while,
So
and
it was my state or my city, Philly. Um,
then Hamilton sold it down the river.
yeah,
Beast.
yeah, I think that's like, it is interesting because I do want to talk to you a little bit about just like, because I think you kind of, I'm someone who's like, because you talked about this, you didn't really have a ton of family who served in World War II or were
No, I don't
veterans,
think I
right?
have any family that served in World War II. I have family
And
that's I have a grandfather who's in Vietnam in the Navy. Um, but I don't know of any military history with any of my family before that.
yeah, and whereas I have a ton, and one thing I often hear is a lot, I was reading a book and they were talking about black representation in the military and it said there's not a lot of people who want to be like armor or, infantry because if you think about like history in general, a lot of people join the army because a parent did it or a grandparent did it and they want to do what their parent or grandparent did. But a lot of times in our past history, like World War II, black people were relegated to being pogues, which means people other than grunts, which essentially means like the people who are running logistics in the war, which is very important. But like if you think about it, there's a reason why that's like that. And it's because there's this history of not wanting, which is just the weirdest thing to not let people serve on the front lines.
Yeah. Well, even before both world wars, you had the Buffalo Soldiers, where they just
Yeah.
sent them out into the western frontier to deal with the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's a weird one to talk about.
Yeah, it's very weird, but it was
Or
they didn't want them have their own. I mean, they wanted them to just basically just go out here and just deal with that over there. They didn't want them to be fully integrated into the army, so they basically had these um all black divisions where they just sent into the western frontier to um put pretty much put down any Native American resistance or whatever. Um, and that's a tragic tale in itself. But
yeah, and and like when you think about it, there is like a lot of hold backness essentially because as we said there's a good reason that there was a only like a 10-minute section of the entirety of Battlefield 1 that gives these guys, and then I don't even think a single one of them speaks with the besides occasional grenade,
yeah,
because the in how stupid our country is, the backlash that would come out if you had a game that was like, here's a game about the Harlem Hellfighters, would be stupidly insane.
yeah. I mean, like at least they got that much.
I
Like
know, like it's like, and it sucks that you have to say like at least they got that much when they should have gotten more.
absolutely,
I think
but
that's, like I said, that speaks a lot about where our country is at now.
that game, like as little screen time or I don't know play time as they got, uh, it still exposed me to this part of history which I was completely oblivious to.
Yeah, I think just like random History Channel shows introduced me to who they were. back when History Channel was just before History Channel was just Hitler, and before it was aliens and awful shows about
History
pawn shops that turn out to be run by pedophiles.
History Channel's weird.
Yeah, yeah, it
But
is. Yeah, all right. And then we're going to take a few minutes just to like talk about our quick thoughts on some current news. Tyler, your thoughts on Trump being acquitted?
well, I think my thoughts are pretty self-evident. I'm not happy about it. But at the
Yeah,
same time,
not surprised.
no, of course not.
Yeah, that was
It's
like I don't know why I thought anything else was going to happen besides this.
because the GOP is a bunch of fucking cowards.
No, it is. They are the most spineless creatures on the face of the planet, and that's like including jellyfish and whatnot.
Yeah, straight up. Well, what was the count? It was 57-43.
Yeah.
It is like what? Why is it that the side that got most votes loses?
Well, it's the filibuster.
Like, how American is it that the people?
I know. Is there more American than the majority of a voting party voting against something and it doesn't happen?
Yeah, the people with the less votes are the winners.
It's like, and then we have in media news, we had Gina Carano. She
Gina
doesn't fucking deserve her
Carano.
name pronounced right.
Gina
Getting fired for comparing conservatives to Holocaust survivors.
That situation is so fucking bad.
And like, I'm
Um,
sorry, Disney didn't even like take a strong fire her. They just didn't renew her contract.
right. Um, so there's a ton of talking points about the specific situation, and I've been very privy to a lot of them, and they're all bad. I know every single take that's like, yeah, she deserved, like every single take that's not, yeah, she deserved that, is bad. Um,
No, I mean, and like, I'm sorry, but like, it's fucking bullshit that she got away with it for this long, and now they're
yeah.
finally doing something, and what they're doing
Well,
is like, I'm not going to sign your contract again.
after she spent months not only spreading conspiracies about masks and election fraud, but also like mocking trans people. Um, Disney was fine with that, but dear Lord, uh, fucking prevent her from coming after the Jews.
I was talking about with
That,
somebody. I was like, it does kind of make the Mandalorian to have hard to watch that like she has those opinions and like she's pretty so front and center in the show. He says, yeah, but she also used to get punched in the face for a living, so I don't really expect her to have good ideas.
yeah, and she's also just like not a good actress.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of The Mandalorian. I really enjoyed it, and like Cara Dune has some neat scenes.
You
Like,
also know like how cool Pedro Pascal is as a
oh,
person.
he's so cool.
Like people we stand on this podcast, Pedro Pascal is at the top. Like his parents were literally hiding people from the fascist government that their country had at the time.
Pedro
Like,
Pascal's an absolute king.
yeah.
But people are one of the counterpoints to Gina Carano's firing is that oh, but Pedro Pascal basically said the same thing. And no, first of all, no, he didn't. What Pedro Pascal did was he compared the conditions of the detention centers on the border to the Holocaust, which is not entirely accurate either.
Right, but also it is a fucking concentration camp.
Yes.
Unless you show me detention cells filled with Norwegians trying to immigrate to American right now, or Canadians. And if you find that, you are making me the fuck up because I know that shit doesn't exist.
It's not, and like, again, it's not like it's not a 100% comparison, obviously, but like at least there's like a parallel to be made there.
No, but I think he like his point was with that picture, like, hey, if this makes you think of this, maybe that's kind of fucked that we're doing this.
Right, and I was like, I was like, for when I first like started seeing stuff like that, I was just like, I was kind of put off by it. I'm like, yeah, but these people aren't being like, literally led to their deaths.
Yeah.
So it's not
Which,
really
yeah, and I also think
fair.
like even though yes, the internment camps were technically concentration camps, I don't like calling them concentration camps because that is an argument that a lot of times Holocaust deniers use to like downplay the Holocaust, which is it sucks, but like also because there's definitely a difference between historical terms speaking, a concentration camp and a death camp.
Right.
But those two words in modern it's have become one and the same. So now we kind of have to change our language talking about things like internment camps.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that this makes me bring up is like just like the discourse in general. How often do we hear like where it's like, how come you guys don't respect Republican ideas? Because your ideas are literally like other people's lives aren't as important as ours.
It's if you're poor, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it's like
That's
it's
what it
like you don't respect our opinions. Okay, what's your opinion? Liberal, you go first. I think gay people should be able to get married. Republican, I think they should all die. Okay, you're clearly the villain here.
and then you and then you have the centrists that are like, okay, guys, both of you are bad.
Yeah.
But I will not provide any solutions to any
Fucking
issue.
Joe Rogan asshole. Like
It's and then they're also like, yeah, but what about freedom of speech? Freedom of This is the exact text of the First Amendment. It says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What does that have to do with being fired from your job or being banned on Twitter? Where's the connection? Because
yeah, and Disney's a corporation; they can do whatever they want.
Corporation is when cancel culture.
Yeah,
It's there's if you're so much of a fan of the free market and the rights of corporations, then it's their right to ban or fire whoever the fuck they want. Is that not correct?
yeah. I mean, it's either you choose that you like. It's the same thing with Twitter. Like, why does Twitter have the right to do this? Well, they're a corporation. It's not. They don't
They can do whatever the
adhere.
fuck they want.
They're also international corporations, so they don't legally have to adhere by it.
Yeah.
And according to some guy on TikToks, America's a corporation too. So, yeah,
our government, the First Amendment exists basically. So if you got an issue, you can take it up with the government and you won't be shot for it.
Oh, and there's also kind of an asterisk, like freedom of speech. But like if you're spreading misinformation or harmful, it's the equivalent of yelling fire in a movie theater.
Right.
There is a
That's
limit.
only okay if there's actually a fire.
Yeah. And like this is gonna make me sound bad. I don't necessarily think like freedom of speech, like when it just means you get to say racist shit, that's not freedom of speech.
There's freedom of speech, but then there's also hate speech.
Oh, and there's also consequences. Like, yes, you can say shit, but there will be consequences for your actions.
And nowhere in the Constitution does it say like, yeah, your job shall be protected if you say racist ass shit.
Like, yeah, you got the right to. Yeah, sure, you have the right to say that shit, but you also have the right to catch these hands.
I have the right to the freedom of establishing religion. I have the right to peacefully assemble. I have freedom of the press, but I'm not being protected from being banned from Twitter when I say
Yeah. Well, like
that
Republicans
basically being
are
a
like
Republican is being a Jew in the Holocaust.
Republicans are always like freedom of speech unless you are talking about anything besides unless you're talking about sex, anything subversive to our beliefs, or anything anti-Christian. Freedom of religion unless it's Judaism or Islam, and
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
can go on. Right to all for all to ban to own guns unless it's people we don't like,
Um,
which do with that information as
did
well.
you hear that Ben Shapiro is going to fund a film with Gina Carano after she got
He's like funding her because he has like some weird fetish for like a large woman to pick him up, doesn't he? And like cradle him like a baby. That is actually fact that that's the only reason he's hiring her, is so she can cradle him like a giant baby as he wears a diaper. That is fact, and nobody else can tell us otherwise. I should say that's parody because I don't want to get fucking sued.
It's it's so fun. Like I'm like especially upset with like Ben Shapiro is probably one of my least favorite people like ever because he's he's a Jew, but he gives us such a bad name. Like if there is an Uncle Tom equivalent term for Jews, it's Ben Shapiro.
And welcome to being white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Like
Like, we all give ourselves bad names, but yeah, no. And he's also just like the most repulsive. The only person who's these days is catching up to him in terms of being like just outright terrible for discourse is Steven Crowder.
God, I fucking hate that dude.
And I also don't understand how people look at either of them and go like, yes, these are the symbols of masculinity. The 5'2" loser who got shoved in lockers and the fat loser comedian. Like, how do you look at these guys and go, these are the symbols of masculinity?
The thing is like at, if, especially how he's like coming to Gina Carano's defense. It's just like, look, dude, your people were literally forced into camps and massacred by the thousands.
Yeah.
And you're okay with her comparing that to being to having your feelings hurt on Twitter because you're a Republican.
Well, like, I'm going to give a comparison here so people understand how fucked up that is. I remember when I broke my leg, somebody that I'm friends with, if you're listening to this, you know who the hell you are, said, I know how you feel. I once broke my toe. No, you don't. My leg split in half. And also, yeah, no, you're not. Like, Republican, the fact that, like, nobody's forcing you, and if you got arrested, it's because you did something fucking illegal.
Republicans want so hard. They want so badly to pretend that they're oppressed.
Or they want to be oppressed. Nobody in this country wants to be oppressed more than Republicans and Christians.
They have such a hard on for the idea of oppression. It's just like, please, please, please censor me so I have a point.
It's like the weirdest form of some sort of sub fetish that has ever existed.
It's so absurd to me. They have this fantasy that they're like being attacked because they're Republicans. Like, no, you're being attacked because you're a fucking psychopath. Like
I'm trying to think of what I'm titling this episode.
It's weird. It goes
because this is gonna be the Harlem Hellfighters and I was gonna say Harlem Hellfighters and we talk about the Mandalorian
and Gina Carano.
Yeah, I think the good thing is like, how do I put this? Ben Shapiro's movies are never gonna be successful.
No, I want to see them though.
Oh fuck. Okay,
we're
gonna start a Patreon, and if we get $50 a week, we will watch Ben Shapiro's shitty movie and hate it.
Involved.
What?
We could also get some alcohol involved in there.
I that might be the only choice for that.
That's the only way to watch those movies. I gotta.
When do you turn 21?
March 2nd. So we're very
on
close.
March 3rd. We will be watching
Run, Hide, Fight.
I hate him so much. From what I've heard, apparently like the villains are like mentally ill guy who talks to himself, so fucking original. The Joker, nerdy dude, and goth girlfriend. Because of course that's who Ben Shapiro thinks is doing the fucking school shootings.
Yeah. No, because
Except like
it's only a mental issue of mental illness if it's like a white guy.
the only way Ben Shapiro could have made like an accurate school shooting movie is if it started with somebody watching his fucking videos, then going and like shooting up a school.
I Lord, this who gets under my skin. But
What?
I really want to see this movie. I just need to know what it's about. And
I don't.
I'm very excited for this Gina Carano project.
I really don't want, like, I'll watch that, but like this school shooting one's just so violently offensive as an idea to me.
Yeah, it's just I heard it's just Die Hard, but in a school,
Yeah. Oh
and that
my god.
makes me very upset. But I gotta see how shit it is. I'll pirate it. I don't care. I'm
Yeah,
admitting.
like that's the thing. I don't want to give him money. Like I refuse.
I will literally admit to piracy when it comes to this man's films.
Yeah. I will never give Ben Shapiro money, and that is a sword I will die
The
on.
Daily Wire.
Oh my god, have you seen that? I'm gonna share. Anyway, but I'm gonna get to wrap this up. Our question of the week, and my question for you is, Tyler, what's a misconception about history that you hate?
Ooh, there is a lot of them. Yeah.
Because I think we kind of talked about this regarding. I brought up the myth of white man's war.
Oh yeah, honestly, it definitely is it's not so much of a misconception, it's just the lack of knowledge about it. And it's 100% the lack of representation in history. Like I don't it's not that like um it's not that it's not true. It's like nobody's like spreading lies. It's just nobody's talk. I mean, there's people spreading lies. Like of course, we all it happens all the time. But like as I was talking about earlier, like um yeah, the black people have always been an important part of American military, and they've always been there serving our country, but we don't really get to talk about that much. Like nobody's like not many people are like making shit up about it, but nobody's talking about it, and that
Yeah.
makes me really upset.
I mean, so is that the misconception you would choose off your head right now, or?
Yeah. Especially like oh another thing is
I think the most, I'm going to say the most infuriating one I think of is that Hitler was a socialist or the Nazis were socialist.
no people stop saying that shit. It's so wrong. They
That's like, I
they
mean,
were
like that could be
socialists.
an episode on its own, but like
Too.
this national socialism is not fucking socialism. Hitler literally worked hand in hand with like industrial capitalists to work to create 90% of the shit he did.
He hated socialists.
No, like they fought. Like the first people who, if you like, fuck, I really don't want. So, along with the Jewish stars, one of the things you could get labeled was with a red triangle, which
Mhm.
represented socialists.
Yeah. No, they hated those dudes.
And if you were like in a really bad boat, you got that red triangle and the Jewish star.
Oh, and then if you want to make it really, really bad, you could be gay too, and then have the pink triangle as well.
Yeah, yeah. You like that was just kind of like the worst case scenario.
I mean, you would. I don't even know if you'd be around long enough to suffer the consequence of that.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, I gotta start with a lot of colors. Oh shit.
Yeah, but also another thing I was gonna bring up is the lack of uh knowledge. I mean, it's also I guess it's also a misconception is that gender and sexuality is a recent thing that we're only talking about now. Like homosexuality didn't wasn't a thing until recently. Or being trans is like a recent idea, but this stuff has always existed.
I mean, we just talked about, but like in World War II, like one of those, like when you see videos of them burning books, the Nazis, the books they're burning, some of them are medical textbooks talking about how to do effective transgender procedures because Germany at the time before the Nazis, was one of the capitals in the world of transgender research.
Yeah, like gays have been there throughout all of history, and uh people have this idea, like they get so upset with the idea of there being anything but two genders, but the idea of not only having more than just two genders, but also not conforming to either like male or female, that's been there forever. That's always been a thing. It's not like the liberal media just made that up 5 years ago.
Or as everybody pointed out when Harry Styles wore a dress that one time, and the right wing hated that. Like there's masculinity and femininity
Um,
changes over time.
the Japanese are famous for kabuki theater, in which the actors are men, but they're all dressed as women. It's all male theater, dressed like women. And the reasons for that are different because like I'm pretty sure it was to prevent like prostitution and shit. But like cross dressing isn't a new invention. Oh, and especially in the ancient world, everyone in the ancient world was gay as hell. The
Yeah, I mean,
Greeks, the Romans, they're gay as shit.
that's the thing I love about all the dudes who are like, we need a strong Western society like the Romans and the Greeks. Is anybody gonna tell them? Can I tell them?
Do I need to whip out the pottery of some dude sucking another dude's dick? Because it happened. It's true.
Uh,
Like there's not a doubt in my mind
my
that
grandparents
Alexander
listen
the
to this
Great was gay.
podcast.
What?
I just had to remind my family listens to this podcast. I had to remind myself about that.
But there's
All
not a
right.
doubt in my mind that Alexander the Great was gay.
On that note, thank you all for listening. This is going to be a weird episode to come up for a title for.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tyler.
Sorry. I genuinely thought it was gonna be longer.
Oh, yeah.